A while ago, I read Bravelands, an Aaron Hunter book series that is relatively forgotten by Aaron Hunter fans. The first arc was pretty interesting to me, and it turns out that a lot of other people found it interesting as well. I promised that if people liked it, I would get around to reading the next arc, and I finally read it, half a year later, but better late than never. So let's dive back into the world of Bravelands and see what those crazy animals have been up to. But before we get started, if you are new to this channel, please think about subscribing. I regularly post both Wings of Fire and Warrior Cats content, so you'll never be bored. And to my current subscribers, thank you so much for supporting me. I wouldn't have gone here without y'all. Before we dive back into the story, let's begin with a refresher on the story and world building of the world of Bravelands. So if you didn't watch the first video, you can still understand what is happening. That is because, unlike Warriors and Survivors, the second arc doesn't actually reference the first arc that much. The animals of the Bravelands, aside from all the lions and the reptiles, follow the Great Parent, who is pretty much the avatar in animal form. The Great Parent has a number of abilities such as seeing through others' perspectives, speaking in both common tongue and other animals' tongues, and other such cool things. All the animals listen to them, and they are charged with keeping peace and balance throughout the Bravelands. The only difference between them and the Avatar is that the Great Parents get their powers through the Great Spirits, and an animal is not the Great Parent at birth, and they only receive the Great Spirit after the previous Great Parent's death. So in the first arc, we follow three characters: Sky the Elephant, Fearless the Lion, and Thorn the Baboon. During the first half of the arc, a malicious baboon named Stinger lies about being the Great Parent after orchestrating the death of the previous one. He uses Fearless as his weapon, whilst also supporting the lion who Fearless has sworn revenge upon. He suppresses Thorn, who knows of all of his misdeeds and wants to overthrow him. Finally, Thorn, Sky, and Fearless unite to take down Stinger and his lackey, Titan the Lion. They kill Stinger, but Titan simply goes missing. Thorn realizes that he is the new Great Father, and just as things begin to settle back to normal, animals begin to show up dead, missing their hearts. Turns out Titan is alive, and he aligned himself with the Golden Wolves, who can eat hearts to gain power. The animals of the Bravelands once again unite against him and the Golden Wolves. Fearless and Titan kill each other in a marvelous bloodbath, and the Bravelands are at peace again. Editor Rogan here. I just realized something major. Despite having an entire section dedicated to exposition, I forgot to explain what the Sand Tongue in Curse of the Sand Tongue means. In Bravelands, there are three languages. The first is Grass Tongue, which is spoken by pretty much all mammals. The second is Sky Tongue, spoken by birds. The final is Sand Tongue, which is spoken by reptiles, all the way from crocodiles to snakes. A few times in this video, I simply say lizards, but I mean reptiles. Just letting you know, because if there's anything I learned from my last video, it's that people love to nitpick. And also, I don't want to disturb the flow of this video by re-recording sections too much. Also, animals in the Bravelands typically are monolingual. However, the Great Parent can speak all languages as part of her powers, and a rare few animals can also learn other languages, such as Spider the Baboon. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Now that I've reminded everyone of what happens during Arc 1, let's move on to Arc 2, Curse of the Sand Tongue. The first protagonist we are introduced to is Bramble Greenback, a young gorilla. He's a bit of a prankster. His father, Burbark, is the Silverback, or leader of the troop he lives in. He looks up to his brother, Cassava, who is the Brightback, or second in command. And one day, Bramble decides to take a bit of a stroll on his own. On that stroll, he encounters a leopard named Chase, our second protagonist. She helps him fight off some hyenas, and then she returns to her mother. Her mother is looking after her nephew, an orphan kitten named Seek. Chase goes out once more to hunt for them and is interrupted by Shadow, who I could tell would be a romantic interest within 3 lines. Finally, our third protagonist is Prance the Gazelle. The gazelles are very unique, even compared to the diversity of species we have gotten perspectives from thus far. They have a general sense of the us, which is pretty much just a herd mentality / hive mind that they are a part of. The gazelles can also lose their sense of us and become shadowless, or marked for death. Unfortunately, Prance is marked as one of the shadowless. She instantly loses the sense of us, but despite that, she doesn't want to die. Back at the mountain, there's been some mysterious rumblings. The gorillas all go to the mouth of the mountain, a cave with some smoke leading out of the gaps in the rock. There, the gorillas hear of a prophecy from Dayflower Mistback. there's Seer, who says that the Bravelands are in danger because of the mountain. However, Burbark refuses to listen to Dayflower because of the prophecy that caused the gorillas to move to the mountain in the first place. Blood pools on the plains. Later, Bramble finds his sibling, Cassava, mysteriously killed, and while Burbark seems sorrowful, he also blamed Cassava's death on him disrespecting his orders and trying to go down to the plains. Despite how suspicious the situation looked, they found a dead leopard nearby that they thought killed him, so Burbark is off the hook for now. Unfortunately, that leopard was Prowl, Chase's mother. A firm believer in the code, Chase is shocked when she finds the gorillas mistreating her mother's corpse. She tries to fight the gorillas, but a mysterious leopard named Range steps in and tells her that it isn't worth her life. Chase takes his advice and leaves. She tries to look after her young cousin Seek on her own, teaching him how to hunt and rejecting the help of Shadow. Burbark appoints Bramble as Brightback, much to everyone's shock. Bramble tries to convince Burbark to make someone else the Brightback, but instead, Burbark sends him on a mission to scout the other troops. While on this mission, Bramble finds Chase and Seek. Chase is sick. Bramble tries to help her, but she yells at him because his troop killed her mother. He yells at her because her mother killed his brother. Frustrated, Bramble goes to return back to his troop, but stumbles upon his father getting high on snake venom. This might sound out of nowhere from the details I've given you, but it's actually pretty well foreshadowed in the book, as his father hides a suspicious wound and sometimes acts strangely. Horrifyingly, as Bramble looks around, he notices more and more gorillas with snake bites like his father. He realizes the only gorillas he can trust are Moonflower and Dayflower. Chase heals from the sickness and accepts help from Range. Range asks her to be his mate, and they will raise Seek together. Chase lets him down easy, and then she encounters Shadow, who mistrusts Range despite Range also bringing kills to help him. It's been a while since we checked in with Prance the Gazelle. She is not dead, having fought off both a lion and crocodile attack. The only animal who wanted to hang out with her was a vulture, until finally a zebra named Grassfriend offered her to join his herd. The zebras have their own version of the Us called a friendship. After saving Breezefriend, another zebra, Prance is accepted into the friendship under the name Prancefriend. However, things look a bit shaky after Fig Highleaf, an emissary of the Great Father, comes asking about someone not being natural. Prance lies to him and is free to go, but is almost bitten by a cobra right after, and then the zebras discover that she has no shadow. Back to the mountain, where Bramble and Moonflower are making their way to the Spirit Mouth alone, to find some answers about the snake bites. Bramble saw a vision of Cassava and Prowl in the smoke, and Moonflower was told by the spirits to speak to the dead one on the plains. Burbark confronted them when they came back, and put the snake bite thing out in the open, almost poisoning Dayflower with a snake bite. He then almost poisons Bramble, but then says that he isn't worthy enough to serve a mysterious her yet. Burbark reveals that he killed Cassava, and he feels no regret, as he can just make another son. Bramble, Dayflower, and Moonflower are tossed into the Spirit Mouth and sealed inside, left to die. Bramble and Moonflower escape, but Dayflower is blocked by what Bramble thinks is a big snake. They leave her behind and decide to follow the spirit's advice and go to the plains. Sorry to leave you on a cliffhanger about Prance there. Turns out the whole no shadow thing was no big deal, and the zebras recognize her survival after being marked as a sign of strength from her. But Prance still leaves soon after, feeling guilty after almost getting Grassfriend stuck in a hole. The vulture then returns. The vulture takes Prance to the Great Father, the elderly Thorn, who says that the Great Spirit has a purpose for her. There she meets Moth Starleaf, who is the daughter of the enigmatic Spider. I seriously wonder how that happened, considering Spider's entire deal. But as usual, Thorn listens to the concerns of the animals of the Bravelands. Prance senses a pattern, and feels like they might be having an issue with all the lizards, aka the Sand Tongues. Thorn calls a great gathering because some of the animals think he's going senile because of how old he is. Snakes attack the great gathering. Meanwhile, Chase, Seek, and Shadow are being chased by hyenas. They find refuge in a cave. Range comes in and tells them that they don't need to worry about the hyenas, or anything at all, as he serves a leader who can help the entire mountain. Range says that he hopes that Chase will accept her leadership, as Prowl did not, and he had to kill her. He tries to kill Chase as she denies him, but in the end they all escape range, even though Seek is bitten by a snake. Seek acts strangely because of the snake bite. A injured hyena named Ribsnapper that Chase helped to save reveals that eating rotten meat helps to stave off the effects of snake bites. Before Seek can be convinced to eat the rotten meat, he disappears. Chase finds Seek in the middle of a group of animals infected with the snake venom. However, she is unable to retrieve him. She then decides to look after Ribsnapper. With the help of Ribsnapper, they try to save Seek again, but Chase is captured. Meanwhile, Moonflower and Bramble are attacked by crocodiles, but they then encountered remnants of Sky's herd, who point them in the direction of the Great Parent. Moonflower and Bramble find Spider, who helps them cross a river by using a tunnel. These tunnels stretch underneath the entirety of the Bravelands, who is unconscious from a snake bite that he suffered. They discovered that the lizards and snakes have been using the tunnels to spread across the Bravelands from the mountain. In the tunnel, they find a giant snakeskin, almost as big as Bramble. Prance goes to ask some giraffes about the snake bites. She and a young giraffe get separated from the rest of them. They find a group of herdless animals and ask them for directions, but it turns out the herdless are working as bait for a pride of lions. The pride's leader is Menace, the elderly daughter of Titan. She decides to spare the giraffe and Prance, as long as they work for her. Prance spirit projects and finds Moth and the crew and tells them of her situation. Yes, she can spirit project now, do not question it. Moth and Gallant, a lion who follows the Great Parent, find her just in time and save her. Gallant finds out that his long-lost son, Terror, is traveling with Menace, but he can't convince him to leave Menace. Back on the mountain, Chase is indoctrinated into the snakebite cult and receives a vision of the mysterious grandmother they all worship. However, she manages to fight off most of the effects of venom, and her mind remains intact. Burbark sends Range and Chase to kill a rival gorilla troop. Chase feigns injury and lets two of the gorillas get away. Range takes the fall for Chase's failures, and Grandmother appears and devours him whole. Grandmother, it turns out, is a giant snake. Grandmother decides it is time to go down to the plains. Burbark assembles a stronger army. Chase is chosen as the escort for Grandmother, and she goes into the tunnels with her. As they travel through the tunnels, Grandmother continues to shed her skin, growing into an even larger and more dangerous snake. Prance returns to the Great Father and they both astral project to the mountain. They speak with Grandmother. Thorn decides to let go of life because he's really old and makes Prance the new holder of the Great Spirit. But she doesn't really believe she's the Great Parent, and because Prance refuses to tell anyone about what Thorn said, Mud thinks Bramble is the new Great Parent. They declare a great gathering to declare it officially, but then Prance is revealed as the true Great Parent anyways, so I'm not sure why they decided to include all that. Thorn's ghost also shows up. Just then, the gorillas and the other infected animals descend from the mountain. Bramble makes the stupid decision to meet with them, and to try and talk his father down. He obviously fails. Grandmother discovers Chase's disloyalty, but tells her that she is holding Shadow and Seek hostage, so Chase is still forced to do her bidding. Grandmother sends her to kill Prance, but Bramble fights her off. Chase runs away and stumbles upon Menace and Terror. Menace is injured and will soon die. She instructs Chase to bring Terror back to his father. She stumbles upon Ribsnapper, who left the mountain when it started trembling. Ribsnapper brings her to Shadow and Seek, but it was a trap by the gorillas, and they all manage to make it out with their lives intact, fortunately. Prance astral projects and tries to reason with Grandmother, but fails. Bramble is blamed for not killing Chase for some reason. He goes to prove himself by killing Grandmother by himself. He is ambushed by a group of snakes and is injured and is dragged back to Prance, having failed incredibly spectacularly. The dormant volcano finally erupts. Ribsnapper takes Terror and Seek to the Great Mother while Chase and Shadow go to kill Grandmother, who she knows is weakened. Prance finally orders all of the Bravelands to attack the snakes. She astral projects and Grandmother attacks her in the astral projection. Bramble renders Burbark unconscious and then drags him away from a lava flow. Prance finds Grandmother and fights her. She lures her to the edge of a ravine filled with lava. Grandmother bites her, and Prance throws herself in, dragging Grandmother in with her and killing both of them. but Prance's shadow self still remains. The eruption ends. All the animals poisoned by the snakes wake up, cured. Birdbark dies. Chase is forgiven by the other animals for almost killing Prance. Terror reunites with his father, Gallant. Prance's ghost appears and tells everyone that everything will be okay. Now it's time for the review. Like the first arc, I really enjoyed the diversity and the culture of the animals that we got to see. Some of the cultures that we saw were closest species we've seen before, like gorillas being close to the baboons from Arc 1, but that makes sense as the species are a bit similar, and of course the cultures are not identical. The other species are completely out there when compared to what we've seen before. This arc focused a lot on herd animals. In xenofiction, there aren't a lot of books on herd animals compared to predators, so it was nice to get a perspective from them. I mean, we got Sky the elephant in the arc before this one, but she's an elephant, and we tend to humanize those a lot. Random gazelles and zebras, not so much. Elephants can also defend themselves against predators fairly well, whilst most other prey animals fall to their mercy. The culture of the herd animals was also incredibly unique. The sense of us/a friendship was an incredibly good concept, and I feel like it was enacted well. This arc overall did better than the last arc when it came to making sure every character was entertaining. With the first arc, I often felt tempted to skip Sky's point of view, and sometimes even Fearless's point of view was boring. I didn't have that problem this arc, and I'm sure that the fact that this arc was 3 books while the last arc was 6 books has a lot to do with that. The pacing was also amazing, likely as a result of the arc being shorter. There was practically never a dull moment. The risks were higher than ever, with the sword of Damocles hanging over the protagonist's heads at every second. But there are still some problems with this arc. It was very predictable. I predicted that the mountain was a volcano starting in chapter 3 pretty much. I knew that Prance would be the Great Mother very early on. Chase X Shadow was obvious too. Prance was quite literally marked from death since the beginning. Her death didn't surprise me, especially since the last arc ended with a big sacrifice too, but I'm not too bad about that because of the way she died was sick. The only big plot point I didn't see coming was Chase joining the infected animals, and I really enjoyed that plot line. The struggle over Prance being the Great Parent was a bit drawn out. Granted, it was only for 5 or so chapters and not an entire book like Thorn after Stinger died, but it's still something we already went through, and I don't really think we needed to see that again. We also still don't know what Spider's deal is, and he's only become more interesting. I completely skipped over this, but he literally has a crocodile son. He's a baboon. He once led a clan of meerkats even though he's a baboon. Just, what's going on with him? If they explain what's going on with him in Arc 3, my mind will seriously be blown. Despite how predictable this arc was, writing-wise, it was a lot better than the last one. But what do you think about Thunder on the Mountain? Should I read the next arc and see if the quality of Bravelands only increases? Comment down below. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe. I make animal fiction centered videos pretty often, and your support means a lot to me. And to those who are already subscribed, thank you so much for your continued support. I wouldn't have gone here without y'all. Peace, Rogan out.